Last week, we asked you to test your ability to accept feedback and to assess if your team is able to accept feedback. Whether we're giving feedback or accepting feedback, it's hard. You know this personally, but my research backs this up. We'll discuss why it's difficult to give and receive feedback, but interestingly enough, it's harder to accept feedback through email than it is in person. It's actually 10 times harder, to be exact. And we perceive feedback as 90% negative when it comes to us digitally. This perception causes anxiety, and it's difficult to act on the feedback. Dr. Clifford Nass, the author of The Man Who Lied to His Computer, has found that negative feedback consumes more of your intellectual energy than positive feedback. Your brain thinks about this negative feedback more than it does positive feedback. So it's logical to conclude that digital feedback can take people off task. When we receive a text or an email or even a DM about something positive about our work, we smile and we move on. But if you're like me, when we receive an email or a text that we don't understand, we perceive it as negative. We think about it some more, then dwell on it. And then we react negatively, completely forgetting all the positives we've heard. Without feedback, we're not the best we can be. To see feedback for what it is, a tool to help you get better, it's important to be aware of the fact that your brain has been conditioned by social media to see digital feedback as negative. You have to actively work to recondition your brain to recognize patterns in digital feedback. But, okay, why do we see digital feedback as negative feedback? Well, the answer has to do with the different hemispheres of our brain. Negative information generally involves additional thinking, and it's often processed much more thoroughly than positive thoughts, according to Dr. Nass. So when we see or read or experience negative feedback, we tend to think about it more than we do positive feedback. Now, add on generational stress triggers to feedback, and you can see how a culture can be the cause of burnout 8 out of 10 times in every case. One of the factors is that there are no standard emails for feedback. There's no templates for meeting. We're using old-fashioned assessment tools. However, generational archetypes can help us with this. It's time for a self-check. How do you give feedback? How do you give feedback to each generation to move a product forward? And that is a question. And what if you don't give feedback? What happens? Well, we've all done it. Assumptions are made, projects fail, and people are depressed and frustrated. Or sometimes, like me, they probably get a little angry. And, what can you do? How do you move people forward when they're angry? Well, use the same stages you use to form a new habit that we talked about at the very beginning of this course. Awareness, satisfaction, experience, belief, and value.